Hey there, everyone. This is Giovanni Piccini, your presenter for this evening or this afternoon or this morning, whenever you happen to be watching this presentation. That's the great thing about doing these. 2 o'clock in the morning in your PJs, you want to watch a webinar, a presentation. Well, here I am. So first and foremost, thank you very much for this opportunity. I want to thank my good friend and colleague, George Costellas, who asked me to get on board and do a presentation for you folks. Absolute pleasure. George is a very good friend. He's a great colleague. You're very, very fortunate to have George as your director of coaching for the Newington Soccer Club. So thanks very much. So our topic, as you saw at the opening there, was competency-based coaching, and it revolves around you folks who are involved with grassroots soccer coaching. So before I start with the topic specifically, I always want to start with this particular slide or this particular statistic, and it's a very sobering one, as you can see in front of you. 70% of youth sports participants quit by the time they reach high school, and oftentimes they quit by the time they hit middle school. And the research is out there, studies are out there that indicate that the number one reason they quit is because it's not fun. And youth sports should be all about fun. We all know that. We all know that at a certain intellectual level that, you know, youth sports should be a boatload of fun, but it's not, and kids are quitting in a very, very significant percentage. So it begs the question, you know, how do we change this? How do we change this? And I'll give you a very brief answer, but it's a concise one nonetheless. Those of you who are involved in coaching the game of soccer, you've taken on the responsibility to teach this game to folks, to young people. It is really important that you get involved with coaching education, whether it's through United Soccer Coaches or US Soccer, or even just sitting through a webinar such as this one. It's part of your professional development. It's part of your ongoing quest to become more educated. Those folks who do take coaching education courses and do so over, you know, the period of time at which they're coaching, increases their coaching efficacy, which means they're more fit, they're more powerful, they're more adept at creating situations, creating environments that the kids enjoy being involved with. And when they enjoy it, they'll come back. When they enjoy it, they'll come back. So if you haven't taken on the responsibility yet to get involved with coaching education courses, now is the time. Now is certainly the time, because when we, as I noted, when we do this and our ability to coach the game at a more effective level, a more challenging level, a more joyous level, then we can cut away at this very, very sobering statistic of 70% of our kids leaving the game of soccer and youth sports in general. So with that said, let's kind of dive into this, shall we? So what is competency-based coaching? Well, competency-based coaching means teaching the game relative to the stage of human development of the player. Right? So if you look at your pictures in front of you here, you see in the upper left-hand slide there, you see what I refer to as the munchkins. They look to be like 5 and 6 years old. And as we all know, there's certain methods and best practices that we apply to teach the game to that age group. And if you follow down below that group, you see the group of young ladies there. They're, you know, maybe 10 or 11, 12. And as you might assume and know, that there are different methods and best practices and approaches to teaching that age group. And it goes on as the kid gets older, as the young man we see in the middle, and all the way up to the senior level player to the right there that she appears to be a college level player. Obviously, there are certain ways in which we teach the game. Think of school systems. The way we teach kindergartners is different than the way we teach first graders, fifth graders, seventh graders, 11th graders, 12th graders. Okay, so that's what we mean by competency-based coaching, teaching the game relative to where they're at in terms of their human development. So here's how this is going to work this afternoon or this evening or this morning, whichever time you're watching, is I'm going to go through very briefly, kind of give you an overview of the traits of each age group. We'll start with U6s, and we'll break it down to 3/4 areas. And as I go through these, I kind of want you to, in your mind, imagine what these kids are doing on the field, whether it's on the training environment or whether they're playing, And you'll start to kind of say, you say to yourself, oh yeah, that's right. They do that. I've seen them, do that or act a certain way. So let's start with the U6 players, okay? The munchkins, as I love to call them. Let's start with the cognitive part of their development. They are certainly in what we call a I mindset, not we. Their world is, well, their world. They have wonderful imaginations. If you've ever had a conversation with the 5 and 6-year-olds, my goodness, the stuff that comes out of their mouth is indeed fascinating. They have wonderful imaginations. They have very, very short attention spans. So when you're dealing with them, your instructions, the things you should share with them are very short, using keywords with great, great clarity. There's a lack of spatial awareness. I'm really going to spend some time on this one on the next slide. Lack of spatial awareness. This is super important that coaches kind of understand, appreciate when they're dealing with their U6 players, certainly in training environments and watching them in game environments. So obviously their rules must be simple. Right? They don't have the capacity to really deal with anything that's really complicated. Their brains aren't there yet in terms of taking information, processing it in any sort of elaborate way. Where are they physically? Well, their motor skills are just developing. They use primarily gross motor skills. And if you ever watch a 5 or 6-year-old, kick a soccer ball, it's very awkward. It certainly doesn't look like Lionel Messi. That stuff will come over time. Their body parts grow at different rates. And they need to explore a rolling ball. That's really important in terms of their the physical traits. When they kick it and they kick it far, they'll run at it at a certain pace. They kick it shorter, they'll go after that ball at a certain pace. But they really need to explore what that rolling ball is all about. They need lots of sleep, 10 to 12 hours of sleep per night. Where are they socially and emotionally, or socio-emotional? They're egocentric. Well, let's go back to the cognitive. The very first one, they have the I mindset. Well, that makes them egocentric. They are what they are. And they're just starting to learn to play with others. They go from, this is mine and it's all about me to, trying to exploring what it's like to play with another person or another teammate. Positive praise is certainly favorable. They really feed off positive praise. And I live by the old adage, catch them being good. Catch them being good, offer positive praise. It really helps improve their self-esteem and the willingness, the want, the need to want to do more. Rules are fascinating. Well, as we learned earlier, they have great imaginations. And with great imaginations, they think rules are the coolest things in the world. So if you're putting together an activity for a group of U6 players, make them fun, make them fascinating, make them interesting. They really like it. So what should we expect from U6s? And again, these are very, very brief overviews. So U6s, you're playing 4 versus 4 with no goalkeepers. You're using oversized goals. Cluster soccer is the norm. I talked to you in the previous slide about spatial awareness, okay? Cluster soccer, amoeba soccer, bunched up soccer, whatever you want to call it, is normal, okay? They are object-centered. That means their object that they're centered on is the ball. They don't have any idea of what up, back, right, left, middle, what's too close, what's too far away. All they know is that ball. So they're going to cluster around the ball. So if you're out there in the sideline screaming, spread out, you might as well be talking in a foreign language. They don't understand what spread out means. Now, through guided questions, the cluster can begin to take another shape. But what does that mean, Giovanni? Well, that means you might say, hey, Johnny, where might you go? Where might you run to maybe receive a pass, right? So you're offering them through guided questions, and you're planting those seeds that maybe Johnny at some point, it may not be right away, where he might start to explore another part of the space away from the cluster to potentially receive the ball. And over time, with your patience, right, and guided questions and the use of keywords like, where would you go to get the ball? Where would you go to maybe receive a pass? How could you get open? So you have those keywords that infused with guided questions can start to create a situation where the cluster starts to break up. And obviously, as I noted earlier, joy, infuse joy. Heck, they're 5 and 6-year-olds. They're a boatload of fun. Let's take a look at U8 players. Where are they cognitively? So they can start to begin to categorize things, put things in their places. They have a very limited ability to do more than one thing at a time. It's very, very early on in terms of juggling, more than one thing. There is the dawn of spatial awareness. As I noted in the earlier slide, they just start if you do a good job with guided questions and keywords, they may start to think about going in different places. When they get to this particular age group on their own, they might start to realize that on their own. They believe that performance is equal to effort. Hey, I scored 4 goals today. I put forth a great effort. Well, that's not quite, where we know what reality is, but in their brain, that's what they term to be an effort. Where are they physically? Well, their core body temperature is elevated, or particularly when they're running around. Their cardiovascular system is not really efficient. Then again, not much is really efficient. They're 7 and 8. And again, they require a lot of sleep, 10 to 12 hours. Socio-emotionally, or social and emotional, their self-concept and body image is fragile. They kind of know what they look like, and and they're looking to start to compare themselves with other peers, other players, and that's very, very fragile. Heck, they're fragile in general. Let's remember, coaches, that these are not small adults. These are indeed children, and children are fragile. And as you might suspect, they are easily bruised psychologically by peers and adults because, again, they are fragile. They don't have the capacity to take information or take stuff, if you will, and process it in a manner that they understand. They're 7 and 8. Their universe is expanding with friends, and they start to desire social acceptance. So you put those two things together. If their universe has to expand, they have more and more friends. This idea of being more social and being socially accepted is the norm. So U8s. What should we expect when we have U8s? Well, again, you're playing 4 versus 4 with no goalkeepers. Again, oversized goals. The cluster begins to take on a truer soccer shape, like I talked about earlier. And the coach must continue to ask guided questions with the use of key words in order to get that process, continue to use that process to get them to kind of to spread out. Passing to open players is now realized. Well, they see Mary over there on the right side that's kind of open. Well, if I give her the ball, she's wide open. Continued patience by the coach. Coaches, this is a process. This is a process. And the things I've talked about here early on are not going to happen in one session or a week or a season. It's going to happen over, when they're 5, they're 6, they're 7, they're 8, right? So there's going to be a period of time of years where these elements are going to start to come forward. And again, it must always be fun. U10s, cognitively, where are they? So they start to think ahead. It's not just in the moment. They can think a minute ahead, 5 minutes ahead, tomorrow, what's happening next week, when the next game is. Again, the dawn of spatial awareness continues to expand and to grow. They start to spread themselves out a little bit more. They start to understand what's too close, what's too far, what's in the middle, what's up, what's back, what's right, what's left. And because of that, they can begin to understand positions. Well, they know if they're a right-sided player, they know where the right is. They know if I'm in the center midfield, I'm in the center part of the field or that space. Those things are tied together. They're self-starters. They want to get going. They want to get started in games and practices and training sessions. Where are they physically? Well, they have gross and fine motor skills that are always being developed. So you may see kids at this age who are still kind of a little bit clumsy, but then they show flashes of more refined movement, hence fine motor skills. The dawn of visual acuity. In other words, their peripheral vision is starting to open up. And again, they're more prone to heat injury than adults. And the genders start to develop separately. As we know, girls have a tendency to develop a little faster than boys. And that may be the same with both genders. Just be aware of that when you have got a group of U10 players, or a group of any players for that matter, who are grassroots level, that some of the kids may be a little bit ahead, some of the kids may be a little bit behind in terms of their human development. Socio-emotionally, there's a sense of security in small groups, right? They like their small circle of friends that makes them feel very, very secure. Competition becomes more serious. Heck, at 10, they know 7 is more than 5. And if the score is 7-5, they know if they're winning and they know if they're losing. So that heightens that sense of competition. They start to take on responsibility for their own actions. They know when they've done well, and they certainly know when they've done bad. Just take a look at the expression on their faces sometimes. Team identification is beginning to form. So if you kind of tie these things together, this sense of security in groups, right? That leads to this idea of team identification. We're a group of soccer players. Hey, we're the Bumblebee Soccer Club, or we're XYZ Soccer Club. They have this idea of team identification. What should we expect when we see U10s? Well, 7v7s, and for the first time, Goalkeepers. Now, goalkeepers is a whole other presentation, but you've got a great resource down there at Newington with George Costellas. He can certainly take you through the process of the development of goalkeepers. So specific systems of play are employed, right? So you want to make sure that you employ a specific system and you ask the players why you are employing the system. Folks, we're going to play a 1-3-2-1 today. Well, why do you think we should do that? Why do you think we're going to organize our system in that way? And you ask the players. Always have a reason why you're going to employ a system of play. Ask the players, use the Socratic method, guided questions so that they can begin to process what this is all about, and then they can better employ it. And the attacking shape is more understood. When we have the ball, what should our shape look like in this system? And well, we've lost the ball, we're defending. What should we look like in terms of our shape when we're defending? Functional roles are defined. So what does that mean? Well, every position has a function. So if you're, I'll give you the easiest one in the world, folks, the goalkeeper. Well, the goalkeeper's function is to keep the ball out of the net. The center back has a function. The center midfield has a function. The attacker up top has a function. So they should all know what their job description is. They should all know what their functions are. They have an early understanding of what the 4 moments of the game. And what are those? Well, very simply, your team has the ball. Your team has lost the ball. Your team is defending. Your team has won the ball back. So they should know what they need to do in those 4 moments of the game. And I'll break it down even more. Well, what do we do in those 4 moments in the respective thirds of the field? Example, losing the ball in the defensive third is different than losing the ball in the attacking third, right? So they should have an understanding not only the 4 moments, but the implication of the 4 moments in the thirds of the field. There should be continued technical development. That's ongoing. Even though we've talked a little bit of some tactics here, ball mastery, first touch, passing, receiving, making a save, all the things that are considered technical is ongoing. Remember, coaches, without technique, there are no tactics. So there's an enhanced speed of play. They're a little bit older now. They're a little bit older. They're moving toward fine motor skills. And the way you can enhance the speed of play is to give them more to think about. If they can think faster, they can start to play a little bit faster. U12s, what do we got? Well, cognitively, they're capable of abstract thinking, things that are a little bit more outside the box. Systematic approach to playing. Well, if they've got a system of play and they know their function, that in and of itself is a systematic approach to playing. Multitasking abilities are improved. They can do a bunch of things. They can process more things. They can do more things. Dynamic movement needed to stimulate thought. So they really want to be moving a lot. So this idea of lines, things that are stagnant in nature, does not really stimulate a lot of thought. They need to be involved in small set of game environments where there's a lot of things going on. That's really going to initiate and stimulate thought. Where are they physically? Well, they're developing more speed and strength. Coordination may be related to growth spurt, as I talked about earlier. They grow at different rates, and little Johnny may be growing a little faster than little Billy. Hence, his coordination may be a little bit more advanced. They're in the varying stage of puberty. They're at that doorstep of puberty. And again, kind of beat this dead horse a little bit. That's going to affect their physical development. Playing too much can lead to overuse, right? We hear quite often, we've heard over the years in baseball with pitchers, with overuse syndrome. Well, soccer is no different. Sports are no different. So it's very, very important, coaches, that at every level that you make sure that you have the appropriate intensity of your training sessions, when to give time off, not just during the season, but between seasons, so that the players are always fresh, that their bodies are not sustaining too much use that could potentially lead to overuse. Socio-emotionally, well, they struggle with self-identity. They're getting a little bit older. They know that they're surrounded by a bunch of other people. They start to compare themselves with other people, and they really struggle with, well, who am I and what am I all about? And because they're 11 and 12, they're not quite equipped yet to start to answer those questions. Hence, they struggle. This is where you can jump in as a great role model as an adult, and through guided questions, Socratic method, and support and love, you can help them through that very, very difficult process. Stress may result in childish behavior. You may see, a group of kids acting foolishly because they're under some type of stress. Well, instead of reprimanding them for the childish behavior, you might want to take a step back and say, well, what is causing it? What is the stress that's causing them to act that way? And then identify and deal with the stress factor, and that will help you deal with the behavior factor. Slang is becoming part of their vocabulary. They hear a lot of things. They hear a lot of things from their buddies, their friends. They hear a lot of things in school, online. And now they're dipping the toe in the water as to where can I slip that word in or slip that phrase in. Something you got to kind of be aware of. And they prefer large group games. They love to play. They want to play the game. So when you're putting in the training sessions, and as you all know, small set of games is the cornerstone of how we develop players in this day and age. The larger groups are something that they prefer. What should we expect? Well, they're playing 9v9 now, the addition of 2 more players, again, with goalkeepers. Their functional roles are more defined. Well, what does that mean? Well, you might see someone who's got a particular affinity at a position. Hey, Mary up there at the number 9, she scores a lot of goals. Maybe that's someplace we really want to kind of have her spend some time with. Specific systems of play are employed, as I talked about earlier. Use systems of play that benefit the team, that benefit when you're preparing for another match. And as always, using guided questions, ask them, well, why are we playing this particular system today? Why are we playing a 1-4-3-1 today against this type of team? The attacking and defending shapes are far more clearly understood. And again, the 4 moments of the game are very clearly understood. And as you might expect at this particular age, they're in 5th and 6th grade now, the speed of play is enhanced. That's speed of play in terms of their thought, and then speed of play physically. So now we talk about the senior level player, and I put that in quotes. Let me spend a moment on the title there, because a 13-year-old senior level player is different than a, say, 16-year-old senior level player. We all know that. So what I'm going to describe here is all relative. Okay? So where are they at cognitively? Well, abstract thinking is far more advanced. They form their own questions and thoughts because that abstract thinking is really in a more advanced level. They can now consider other points of view. And they're aware of this process. They're aware of this process of thinking and thought and putting things together that will help them form questions and thoughts. Physically, onset and the continued process of puberty is taking place. And again, they're doing this, they're developing at different rates. Increase of muscle mass, fine motor skills are more predominant. You're moving away from the gross motor skills. Where are they socially and emotionally? Well, there's mood shifts. Again, they're sorting out how to deal with how they feel. Well, why do I feel this way? Well, why am I angry? Why am I crying? Or why is this happening? And they wrestle with that, and they'll go from one mood to the next. Again, it's your job as the coach, as the adult, as the mentor, as the role model, to help them through this. They're self-reflective. They can now, because of that abstract thinking, and they can form their own thoughts and opinions, they can now look at themselves and reflect upon who and what they are, what they did, what they didn't do. Assertiveness. This can be a good thing. Again, I'll go back to the cognitive part. If you put all those things together, they have the capacity now to want to ask a question or assert an opinion. Now, this is a good thing if it's done properly. It can be a bad thing if they do it disrespectfully or do it in a negative way. Overtraining. You say, well, geez, shouldn't that be under physical? Not necessarily, because what we talk about here in terms of overtraining, they may see some of their peers who are a little bit more advanced, a little bit bigger, a little bit faster. They're a little bit more technical, a little bit more adept at playing the game, and all of a sudden they think they have to work harder to the point where they're overtraining. Something you have to be very aware of, coaches. So what should we expect? Well, generally speaking, this should be the complete product. The beginning of the complete product around age 13, and certainly the complete product when we get to the senior level player at age 14, 15, and 16. So technically, functionally, tactically, physically, psychosocially, and cognitively, all the pieces of the puzzle that are necessary to be an effective soccer player should be in place. And you can ask yourself a very simple, fundamental question. Can the athlete employ all of the appropriate aspects of play in a competitive training and match environment? And if the answer is yes, then they're on their way to being a more complete soccer player. Now, everything I just talked about is assuming some very important things, like that the players have had teachers of the game certified and qualified at the levels at which they're coaching. The appropriate training to game ratio has been applied throughout the process. The training environments are conducive to proper teaching and learning, and the experience throughout has been fun and challenging. Coaches, think of school systems. Think of the things that make for a good school and a good school system. You want good teachers. You want teachers that are certified and qualified. You want teachers who are professional and adept and have a passion for a particular grade level. You want classrooms that are dynamic, that are great places for teaching and learning. You want administrators that get the age group. If you're in an elementary school, you want a principal, assistant principal who are professional, expert at what it means to oversee an elementary school. So think school system, apply that to your soccer club or youth soccer organization, and that's what we talk about in terms of making sure that you're going to be developing some good players. Now, a lot of things I've talked about here have been taken and highlighted from U.S. Soccer's Player Development Initiatives, a resource for parents, coaches, and referees supporting the growth and improvement of grassroots soccer. I really encourage you to check that out because they're going to get into far more detailed aspects of what I've been talking about here in this initiative information package. Definitely check that out at U.S. Soccer. And when you're there, you're going to see this particular piece of information, and that has to do with small set of games. And everything is broken down, as you can see, field sizes, goal size, ball size, the number of players, game times, offsides, and all that type of stuff. And all of this should be applied if you're doing this job correctly to the environments at which you are coaching. An additional resource, United Soccer Coaches. And United Soccer Coaches provides programs and services that enhance, encourage, and contribute to the development and recognition of soccer coaches, their players, and the game we love. You can find all this information at unitedsoccercoaches.org. Bottomless pit of information there, and it also is an organization where you can pursue coaching education, which we learned from the very beginning is super important. So now that we have seen and learned and heard about competency-based coaching, and you learn the U6s, U8s, U10s, U12, the senior level player, you're all much smarter, you're all more enlightened, and I want you to really watch here some great coaching. What does great coaching look like? Here it is. Great coaching. Gotta love it. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you regarding competency-based coaching. I hope that the information I provided you at least heightened your interest and prompted you to want to learn more. Again, as we learned, I spoke about earlier, the importance of coaching education, whether it's through U.S. Soccer or United Soccer Coaches. I am at your service. I, as a coach educator for many years, something I'm very passionate about. I do professionally. If there's something you'd like to talk to me about or learn more based upon this presentation or anything else, I'm here to help you. My email address is gp4soccer, that's the number 4, at yahoo.com. 617-968-1800 is the cell phone number. My website address is gp-soccer.com. And yes, indeed, I host a rather popular, I'm proud to say, podcast called GP Soccer Podcast. And I interviewed very recently your director of coaching, George Costellas. Certainly check that out. You can download GP Soccer Podcast wherever you download your podcast. As if you listen to the shows, you hear me say quite often, they are designed to be mini coaching education courses. And you're going to see over the course of the 2 seasons that they've been out there, I have interviewed some of the game's top professionals in coach development, player development, experts at every level of the game. Please check out GP Soccer Podcast. And listen, folks, last but not least, have fun out there. Have fun out there. Talk to you soon.